All right, everyone, welcome to the show today. I am your host, Billy Bateman, and today I am joined by the great Bill Guertin. Bill, how you doing, man?
I'm great. It's good to have you here, Bill. I really appreciate the invitation to be here. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, really excited. I think this will be a little different style of conversation than we usually have, but I think it's a good change up, nice change of pace from what we usually do, and talking about your background and what you guys do. So, if anyone hasn't heard of Bill, author of the 800-pound Gorilla of Sales, and then he's the chief learning officer at ISBI, which is the Inspiration Sports Business Institute. So, Bill, first, tell us a little bit about ISBI.
Well, it's a digital learning platform which we created specifically for the business side of sports and entertainment. It was very obvious to us as we started the company 4 or 5 years ago that there was not a specific digital answer to the type of training that people have been doing around the world. It's Cisco and Google and many, many other nationwide worldwide companies in what's called micro learning. And that's teaching in 10-minute or less video increments. I've been training for a very long time, and most of my stuff has been 2 and 3 day fire hose style exercises. And what we're actually finding now is with today's workforce, smaller bite-sized increments can actually increase the types of habits that we want to form by as much as 80% better. And so it's kind of exciting to be a part of that cutting edge, especially in an industry that isn't necessarily always as cutting edge as it may appear on the outside, and that's sports and entertainment.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. You got a really interesting background, man. So I actually want to back us up just a little bit and tell everyone how you got into selling tickets and coaching people for the sports and entertainment industry.
Well, nobody ever starts where they think they're going to, nobody ends up where they think they're going to end up once you start. And I was
Yeah.
destined to be a radio broadcaster. That was what my life was supposed to be at age 16. And so I got the third class radio operator's license, which is what you had to have when you were in radio at that time. And I became the youngest licensed working radio broadcaster in the state of Illinois at 16. And at 21, I figured out very quickly where the money was. And it was not on the air. It
Yeah.
was in the sales department. And so I gravitated into the sales department, the advertising sales department of small market radio stations in and around the Chicago area, and did that for upwards of 20 years. Really enjoyed the work that we were doing as salesperson, sales manager, general manager, and then ultimately owner of a station, part owner of a station for a time. And then I saw this, the iPod. And when I saw this, I said, if you could put 1,000 songs in your pocket, why in the world do you need local radio? And so that's what I chose. I said, I need to find something else I can be relevant in other than local radio. And so I looked to things that I really loved to do, which was training, really enjoyed sports. I wanted to be a published author. I had this whole bucket list of things that I wanted to do, and literally wrote out 101 goals that I wanted to accomplish. And I've been fortunate enough to achieve about the mid 80s of them since that writing not too long ago. And so I began doing sales training for sports teams based on a customer service seminar I did. And a gentleman from the White Sox by the name of Tom Sheridan came up and said, man, we could sure use your energy in sports. You know, there are people that actually travel around the country and train ticket sales departments. I had no idea.
There you go.
And so that's really how it began. And so I've had the good fortune over my career to work with over 100 different sports organizations throughout the US, Canada, and Mexico, and then just formed this corporation with several other executives in sports 5 years ago.
Awesome. So you guys train people, and getting people excited to buy tickets is a whole different sell than, most of our audience sells software or other services to businesses. Now, a lot of businesses buy tickets. We have some tickets to BYU that we share with the employees and with people we're trying to do business with or customers. But what I wanted to talk about is how do you get people excited about buying these products, which is an entertainment product? And then where do you think there's things to be learned for the B2B side of things, where we're selling things like software or just, services, outsourced services to businesses? Not really that exciting in a lot of ways. Not as exciting as, watching Michael Jordan play basketball or your favorite football team win a game, So let's just start there. And I'm just gonna turn it over to you and
Sure.
let you take us through what you've done.
Every story has a product, or every product has a story. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. Every product has a story to tell. In
Yeah.
sports, the product is so front facing and so obvious that you would think that that's all that sports should sell. BYU has had up and down years. Certainly, there's been some fantastic years and some people that were really excited about the team's progress. And then other years you can probably write off as saying, well, that's rebuilding. But the reason to go has nothing to do, or should not be, beholden on whether the team wins or loses. The thing that we train most in sports sales is you're not selling the game, you're selling what happens to people as a result of the sporting event. And that would be relationships that you build with some alumni that you go to, or a client or two that you might bring to the BYU game. It may be time with family, or a group that you may bring in fellowship as a church, or whatever it is you might be there to do. In fact, many people who come as a group very rarely even know what the score was, or maybe who even won the game. They're
Yeah.
really there just to enjoy each other's company and to enjoy the moment. And so if those people who are selling sell the end result, the product of your product, then people will be less likely to be disappointed, first of all. And secondly, always see the good that comes from an event itself. Even if BYU loses big time, they've actually won because of the experiences they've had with the people they've been with.
I love it. I love it. My wife, when she goes to the game, she really does not care if who wins or loses, other than she knows I'm going to be in a bad mood for a little while if BYU loses. She's just there to hang out with everybody.
Well, and that's true. Let's take a Super Bowl party, for example. Everybody goes to a Super Bowl party for a very different reason. Some people go because they're really excited to see one of the two teams win, or they're excited because they get to dress up and hang out with friends of theirs. Other people want to be sure that the bean dip is the best, or whatever it is. I mean, everybody's got a different reason to go, but everybody's there at a home or wherever you happen to have a party for a specific purpose. And that's a lot like a sporting event. Many people go not simply to see the team win or to lose, but to enjoy the moment and the experience. And that moment starts when you buy the ticket, because
Yeah.
there's anticipation value that takes place. And for all those people listening today, much of when you sell software or whatever it is that you sell, there is some anticipation value that you sell in being able to cure the problem that your software provides, or getting involved with them being more productive. Whatever it happens to be, part of the sales process is helping people get excited about being involved with you from the very get-go.
I love it, man. I think there's some definite truth there. Like whatever we're selling, you're selling a solution and a better tomorrow in some way, you know? Um, so when like cold calling, I don't know how I got on this list, but when I was a student going to BYU, actually, I got cold called by guys trying to sell me jazz tickets, and the
Okay.
jazz was awful at the time. They were awful. So I guess they were scraping the bottom of the barrel because I definitely did not have money to buy anything other than the tickets at the very top. Um, but when you guys, you're cold calling people, maybe the team's down and interest is not what it is when they're winning. How do you get that conversation started with somebody?
Well, in the prospecting side, you do have to cast a wider net. Certainly today, the teams that are doing super well do not have to work hard to sell a lot of the tickets.
Yep.
The Green Bay Packers, for example, have no problem selling out most of what they have at Lambeau or wherever they're playing. But you
Yep.
have some other teams that still struggle in being able to fill the stands. And so they have to look a little deeper and perhaps go deeper than what they might normally have to in order to make that happen. My guess is you probably filled out a register to win form somewhere. You may have been with
Yeah.
a group at some other point going to a jazz game. And so you put your name and address in a hat to be able to draw a jersey of some sort. I don't know what had happened, but it sometimes comes down to if you visited jazz.com and bought a pennant online or something like that. It comes down to as simple as that. So that's how the lead generation takes place. There's also some scoring that takes place. Some lead generation companies can actually scrape some data about you and others like you there that may have a propensity to want to go because college students like to do fun things together. And they may have offered you the very cheapest thing or least expensive thing, value priced thing. Can't say cheapest. It's the value priced inventory to be able to go with that. So that's how that would have happened. And so what's necessary when you get a lead to be able to call in any sense is to get a feel for, what sort of experience someone really likes. And that's no different than what you're selling, whether you're selling cars or software, wherever that is, to ask them what they've experienced in the past. What is it that they've enjoyed in the past? If somebody's never been to a sporting event before, it's probably unlikely that they're going to spend $300 or more for a really good seat to a sporting event. You're going to have to kind of start from the bottom and then kind of work their way up. But if somebody has been to several events or several kinds of events and has told you where they've sat before, you have some sort of an indication as to what they value in that experience, and you can start from there. But where it starts, after you get someone on the phone, is just a really good line of questioning based on whatever knowledge you have before they answer the phone.
I love it, man. I love it. So I want to hit on, your training a little bit. And you guys, you obviously, a lot of people are working from home now, and that trend will probably continue, not as heavy as it is now, but significantly more than it was a year and a half ago. With your training, you guys are doing it virtual. A lot of software companies have done tons of virtual training for years, but I don't think it's always effective. Sometimes we buy a new product and we sit down to like 5 20-minute modules, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'm going to get through all of these. And I'll ask somebody else, well, I'll just start asking the guy next to me, well, how do we do this? How'd you guys come to put everything virtual, and what have you found to be effective as people are building virtual training? What have you guys found to be effective to actually make that training good for the end user?
Well, we started with the concept that was pioneered by BJ Fogg of Stanford University, the science of tiny habits. And what Dr. Fogg had pioneered, and what many people have used around the nation and around the world, is the fact that smaller is better. That smaller increments that are learned and can be applied right away are a better way in which to train, so that you build habits sooner. I would go into a place for 2 or 3 days at a time, and still do on occasion, to a team that really likes that one-on-one, face-to-face sort of training. But I know that after a 3-day fire hose that they'll be exposed to, some of it will stick, and some of it will trail off and never, ever stick again. And so what we've done with this philosophy is make sure to stay within Dr. Fogg's 10 minutes or less methodology, and to put things in there that make it more interesting to want to listen to. This is the YouTube generation we're talking about when we're training, more likely. And so they're not going to listen to an hour lecture. It just isn't in their DNA. They've done enough of that in school, and now they're out of school. They're done with that. There's none of that they want to do anymore. And so we've designed a program that speaks to the age group, to the level of individuals that we're talking about, and their attention spans are not very long. And so we've designed this philosophy based on knowing how people learn today.
I love it. I'm probably part of that YouTube generation. I've become an amateur mechanic watching YouTube,
Oh, fun, sure.
So, but the videos got to be short. Otherwise, I don't even watch it. If it says it's 58 minutes, I've got to really want to know how to solve this problem to watch that video.
Well, and there's another part of that. I don't want to know how long this guy's been servicing cars. I just want to know where the bolt goes to keep the oil in the pan.
100%. Some of these guys will come in and like, I'm XYZ, this, that. The first 5 minutes is just them telling you they're an expert. I don't really care about you to tell me you're the expert. Just show me what to do, and I'll believe you. So
that's our philosophy as well. We don't mince words. We get right to the point. We show people what they need to say, how they need to say it, what it is that's necessary, whether it's our customer service program, our leadership program. We have one on social media, another on sponsorship sales, and we have 4 more coming out here in the next 30 days that are somewhat ancillary to sports, but are becoming more and more important. We have a module on gaming and esports, how to make sure that stick and ball teams can monetize gaming and esports effectively. We have one on positive mental health coming out from a 20-year veteran of sports who actually crashed himself 3 years ago, and now has made it his mission to make sure everyone knows about positive mental health and what to do to build up that muscle called your brain. We have another one on how to sell to and profit from great relationships with minority groups within your organization. And then we are within your community. And then we have another on safety and security, what to do in an active shooter situation or a potential abduction or a potential burglary, what to look for right and left so that you have situational awareness to be able to do something before something happens. So we're really excited about those, and we've incorporated our 10-minute or less methodology in every one of those.
I love it, man. I love it. So I'm going to ask you a little bit of a tangent question on this. You guys have worked with hundreds, if not probably thousands, of sales reps
Yes.
over the years, and you're not managing them day to day. You're just giving them some training, some coaching. But what have you found? You go back, I'm sure, to a lot of the same teams over and over again. What are the attributes you guys see in the most successful sales reps that you go back and Jim or Jenny, like they always hit the number, they go past it. What do you see as the things you guys notice that you're like, okay, these make our best students?
We used to think we had it down, and then inevitably somebody disappoints us or rises to the top that we weren't expecting. So just like everything human nature, it's an inexact science. But we have found a few positive attributes and a few negative ones with regard to selling for a sports team. The most negative one is really one that you might find interesting, is that we don't want to hire fans. We don't wish to hire people that only want to work for the team because, oh, I love the Cleveland Browns since I was 6 years old. I've been watching every single game. Yeah. I watch all the highlights. That's not what we do. You might get a different role with the team in some cases, but if you're going to sell, we want people that are really interested in selling and just happen to sell something fairly sexy like a sports team. The fandom of sports actually puts people in a negative position when the team is not doing well. There was one individual I knew for the Miami Heat that sold for very long for them. And when the team went south, he couldn't sell his way out of a paper bag because he literally didn't think the seats were worth it anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's what ends up happening. So you can't be too big a fan of the team. You also can't expect that you're going to have an opportunity to meet LeBron James coming out of the limo in front of the building. That's not your role. In fact, very few of these people even get to see a game because they're working during the entire game, the entire pregame, the entire postgame. So you never, ever get the chance to watch any of the 45 home games that you might have in the NBA or the NHL. It just doesn't happen. And so we have to eliminate some of those preconceived notions that people may have. So once those are out of the way, the things that we've noticed have been success habits or traits of those best people have been resilience. For those who are familiar with Angela Duckworth's book called Grit, it's those sorts of things. It's that resilience, that never can die sort of attitude, because you may making a whole lot of phone calls and reach outs, and you may only have 7 or 8 different conversations in a day, only one of which may turn into success. And we hire a lot of Division I athletes that have been popular or have been very successful their entire careers, and then all of a sudden they come to work for a sports team, and making 100 reach outs and having one conversation looks a whole lot like failure to them.
Yeah.
And so what you really need is that grit, resilience factor. The other is just the desire to learn from others. If someone comes in and says, I know exactly what I'm doing, just leave me alone, we know they're going to fail because we have best practices that we have to apply for them. We have to show them the best ways that others have done what it is we do. Now, that doesn't mean that they wouldn't be successful down the road, but we want them to be successful sooner. It also, it really has to have a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit to you to succeed at this too. And I think that's true of any salesperson. When you go to work for even a big company like Intuit or whoever you might work for, you still have a brand that's you. And the individual brand, that entrepreneurship that you bring to the table as a representative of whatever company you serve, has to be able to be front and center. You have to be self-confident. You have to be able to be true to yourself and be not afraid to gamble on yourself a little bit. You have to risk some of the things that you do every day to be able to receive the rewards that come from a great sales effort. So don't be afraid to bet on yourself.
I love it, man. Those are some of the same attributes, we look for in our sales guys. Nobody's necessarily, well, I wouldn't say nobody, but it's not a lot of software companies that you would find like a raving fan of in the same way you would, you're the Browns or the Jazz or the Lakers, whatever it is. But I love it, man. I love it. That grit, I think, is really important. Because because sales, it is a tough job. And yeah, like one connect, that's a win. But if you're used to, scoring 30 points a game, doesn't look like a win. So
Yeah.
one,
And
let me ask you this. I was talking with one of my mentors who's hired a lot of salespeople, and he loves to hire athletes coming out of colleges. But one of the things he noticed and he shared with me, he said, the guys who were the superstars on the team, not always the ones you want. And he even made the distinction that if they've done an individual sport such as track, swimming, things like that, it seemed to be a little bit of an easier transition for him as opposed to, like basketball, football, soccer, things like that. Have you guys noticed anything like that?
Absolutely. There is indeed a correlation, and it isn't always symbiotic where basketball players are not going to be as good as golfers. But there is more of the entrepreneurial spirit to someone who has played an individual sport and is used to failing and succeeding on their own without any outside influence, without a teammate or two contributing to a win or a loss. You are the sole contributor to your win or your loss if you're on the golf team. And so there is some of that involved in salesmanship as well. And so there has been, in our observance, a little bit better acceptance within the individual sports with salespeople versus the team sports. Doesn't mean it knocks anybody out that's been on the baseball team at all. But from an individual versus team perspective, we see there's a slight edge to those individual sports that we see that perform better.
Yeah. I can see it myself. I never played any individual sports in high school. I was always team, unless you want to count debate, which I did. And it's kind of a sport, but not really. It's competition.
Well, it's a subset of sales, so you're okay, Billy.
Yeah. It's competition, but it's not athletic at all. So, Bill, before I let you go, I want to ask you, is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't, that you would like to share?
I think for everyone that's out there doing what you do within software, whatever digital product you may sell, you really need to know what your story is and be able to tell it convincingly from the eyes of someone who may be in their very shoes. People don't want to buy the bits and bytes that you put together or whatever it is that your software, what they want is the result of that. They want the product of your product. Just like we in sports sell what happens to people as a result of a sporting event in the seats. It isn't about what's on the pitch or on the ice. It's all about what happens in the seats. And in your world, what really matters is how you affect others' lives positively. It isn't the price point necessarily. It isn't the features that you have necessarily, because most everyone's going to have some similar features down the road. It's the way you present it yourself, combined with the service that you provide someone in helping them get where they need to go. It's the combination of you and your product that people sell or people buy, not just the product itself. So that's what I would leave people with.
I love it, man. I couldn't agree more. It's too easy to get bogged down into comparing features and here's the matrix and all that, when it should be the solution and the story and how we can help people that we lead with and we finish with as well. Bill, thank you so much. If people want to get in touch with you and continue the conversation, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Best way would be probably Bill at isbi360.com. It's ISBI, stands for Inspiration Sports Business Institute, 360.com.
Okay, Bill, thank you again, and we'll chat later.
My pleasure. Thanks again for having me, Billy.